Hi, welcome back to Road Tripping with Rachel. I'm Rachel, and I want to invite you to join me as I work my way through the Bible, life, and sometimes out on the road. So, at the beginning of the year, I set a few goals for myself. I have about 9 of them. I'm not going to list all 9 of them because some of them, like Diener, just doesn't need to know. But some of them, though, I have managed to accomplish so far, and sorry, that's my AC because it is warm and humid here in good old Missouri. So one of the big things that I wanted to do was I had some places I wanted to be able to travel through this year, and you've seen videos on all of those. I wanted to get the YouTube channel up and running. But one of the other things that I really wanted to do was I wanted to be able to read an actual book each month. Post-seminary, you spend so much time reading books for academic purposes and taking notes and writing reports and the whole 9 yards that reading to stimulate your mind and really think about what it is that you're reading kind of takes a back seat after that much time that you've spent academically. And my ability to just pay attention has kind of gone down. So this year I decided I wanted to make it through 12 books that are going to be actual legitimate books and books that would make me think, or at the very least would be like an actual physical book, not something that would just be like on my Nook or a tablet or anything like that. So since we are in mid-July, I wanted to go ahead and share a little bit about the books that I have read so far. So these first 2 I don't actually have with me because one is currently at work because I enjoyed it so much I wanted my office to read it, and then the other one my sister has actually borrowed. So the first book that I read this year was Legacy of the Lost Writer. It is written by Amanda Henry. It's available on Amazon. It's amazing. It's a work of fiction. It is Amanda's first book that has been published, and it is going to be a part of a trilogy. The second book is coming out here in a couple months. I can't wait to get my hands on it. And yes, I refer to her as Amanda because we're actually friends, and I do know Amanda. She works at the university. She's one of the English professors that at the university that I work for. So she is getting ready to publish her second book here pretty soon. The other book that I really enjoyed reading that I don't currently have with me is called Breathing Life into Sunday School, and that is a book that is by Ken Braddy. And in Ken's book, it is all about what are some very solid principles that we can use to apply to Sunday school. I highly recommend, if you are a Sunday school, small group, life group leader, whatever it is that your church calls it, that you go on ahead and invest in this book. It's I think it's like $12.99 on Amazon, something like that. But you can also just order straight through Lifeway, which is the publishing house that made it, because Ken actually works for Lifeway. He was actually one of my field mentors during seminary, so I was really excited when I saw that this book had come out. Now with that, I work in admissions at the local university here in the town where I live, and a lot of the concepts that have to do with recruitment for Sunday schools and small groups also has to do with recruitment in general. So I'm having my office read through those with me, so that way we can collectively just have a refresher on the hospitality side of recruiting people and bringing them in and helping to keep them. So now it's time to get into some of the books that I actually read that I have copies of. So one of the first books that I read after Legacy of the Lost Writer was Finding Freedom. So this is by Erin. It's a memoir. And if you have watched Discovery Plus under the Magnolia Network, Erin is the owner and lead cook at the Lost Kitchen. It's a great show. I highly recommend that you watch it if you have Discovery Plus. I absolutely love it. The food is gorgeous that her kitchen cranks out, and so many different ideas. It's very different, and this is the memoir of how she got to where she is. The other book that I've read is also I found through Discovery Plus and the Magnolia Network. It's the Establishing Home. You can look up the Established Home on the Magnolia Network and be able to meet Jean Stoffer. And it is just a really good book about how her and her husband met, got married, how he decided to leave trading in the stock market, and how she went to work and how things just kind of fell into place for her to learn all about design, and then it's led to her like owning a business and having a TV show and having a storefront and just all these different things. And it gives you a little bit of information, just general info about real estate if you're interested in getting into something like that. One of the other books that I read, I actually started this book last year and have finally finished it. It's called The Other Half of Church. Now, in general, within the church, we tend to, not always, but we tend to be very left-brained. So when we're talking about discipleship, we're talking about knowledge and learning and loving God with our heart, soul, and mind. And we're learning facts, like how do we use a Bible? What are the books of the Bible? Let's memorize verses. That's very much, and it's very important, but the other half of church is being able to learn how to find joy and creativity and being able to love and nurture someone and use the right side of our brain and be able to see that you can worship God through creativity as well. So this is a great book about that. It comes with some exercises. It makes you think. It did take me a while to get through it, not because it isn't an easy read, like it actually is. I'm just one of those people that lawyers hate because if you tell me to read something, I'm actually going to sit down and read it. So there's that. Now, one of my favorite authors, this is Os Guinness. I was introduced to Os Guinness while I was in college, and this is Fool's Talk. So this book is all about apologetics, and it is working primarily with the argument of how Christians today need to learn how to do apologetics, and we need to learn that it's not just what we would call like closed fist apologetics, which means that we're using facts and data and charts, and we have like bullet points and an outline, and we're using rhetoric, and we're using like very like academic terms. Although that does have its place in a formal setting, it is also talking about like it's important that we use what's called like open hand apologetics, which would be where we are using persuasion and parables and stories, and we're asking the person we're interacting with the right questions and making them think. So it's a great book. It gives history. He quotes a lot of people from a lot of different books. Although it is not an academic work, it is pretty academic as far as there is a slight assumption that the person who is reading it does have at least a passing knowledge of some of the people that come up. So like Nietzsche, Kierkegaard, Malcolm Muggeridge, G.K. Chesterton, some of those people. So it is helpful if you have a little bit of a background in that. Otherwise, like it's still a good read. You just might have to look a few people up. Now, this final book is interesting because I love podcasts. I like just to have something in the background, or when I'm driving, just to have something on for me to listen to and to think about and just interact with kind of when I'm by myself. I'm just one of those people. And so I actually heard Sheila, Wray, Gregoire give a review on a different book that she had written, but she talked about this one I'm about to show you. It was actually, it has a lot of data in it, and a lot of charts, a lot of graphs, and it is a survey of over 20,000 women, both evangelical and non-evangelical. I believe all of them are married. From what it sounds like, she had 2 other co-authors who worked on it with her, but it is called The Great Sex Rescue. And it deals a whole lot with how the purity culture message that it really became a part of evangelical culture during like the 90s up through, I would say, probably about the time like I would have graduated from high school, which was 2009, 2010-ish, if we just want to like keep decades just for the sake of argument. Over the course basically of that 20 years, how some of the messages that came across within like youth groups in the church and like just within general evangelical society, how all those have played a role now in how married women, especially like millennials, which I'm like pretty much dead center in that group, how we are viewing like intimacy and how we think about it. It being like, how do we think about sex and intimacy and all that kind of stuff. So it is a really good read. It can be read for couples. It is primarily written for married couples or married people. So like men or women, either can read it, or you can read it as part of a couple. I'm single, so there were things in here that I was like, oh, so that's what that is. But Overall, though, it was very informative as far as like the data goes, and it's very understandable. And she does call out some authors of some different books, some of them that I have read previously, some of them I've sold whenever I've worked at other stores. But overall, I think it is a good book. It is worth reading if you are married or this is a topic of conversation your church is considering having in more of like a small group. We want to discuss this and have a working understanding on it kind of group. I would say, though, if you decide to go with something like this, it needs to be done well and it needs to be done correctly. Sex is a topic that the church has not really ever addressed in a good way. I can kind of go on about this, but it is one that I think needs to be talked about, but I don't think it should be like within an open group. It definitely it needs to be a closed group because of some of the stuff that gets discussed in here. And that I'll leave it there. I'm hoping most of the people who watch this are probably married or at least know married people who might be interested in looking more up. Now, I am really excited, though, about some of the other books I'm planning on reading. So this is going to be Lewis on the Christian Life. So it is written by Joe Rigney, and he is looking at all these different parts of who Lewis was, what he has contributed to theology, what he's contributed to apologetics, which it should be noted that Lewis was not a theologian, although he was a very gifted apologist, but not formally trained. Some of the other books I'm planning on reading is one on J.I. Packer. It's different from this, but I'm planning on reading one on Packer, and then one that's a part of this series that is on Francis Schaeffer. So I'm very excited about that. I was introduced to Francis Schaeffer once again while I was in college, so I am very interested in learning more about him and his life and like how he ended up creating L'Abri. So I hope that you enjoyed this. If you are enjoying videos like this, it does help me to know what kind of content people are enjoying. If you will like a video that I've created, and of course you should subscribe, because that the more subscribers I have, the more my content will be able to reach other people. And like I said, I do Bible studies, which are more like meant to cause discussion, not necessarily discussion based. I like to go on road trips and I share my travels, and then I like to do like all these little life updates, because you're constantly learning and growing, and this is a great way to maybe like you learn something as I'm learning about it. So once again, like and subscribe, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.